And we are live streaming this afternoon. This recording will be on the Community Board 14 website as an ongoing resource.
Okay, so thanks, Sean. Thank you, Chairperson Brown. Thank you, Ms. Carmichael, for joining. Welcome to today's third series in the Lunch and Learn Health series in memory and honor of Dwayne Joseph. Today's topic is Healthy Lifestyle Program Services, and our presenter is Ms. Nyasha Carmichael from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Welcome, and over to you, Ms. Carmichael.
Hello. Let me share my screen and we will get into all right. Can everyone see my screen? Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen? Am I in presenters mode?
Yes, it's there. The screen is visible. We got Hypertension 101.
Perfect. So before we get into our presentation, I just would like for everyone to scan this QR code. This is our, take a moment to do the sign in. I will drop the link in the chat for those who cannot use, say, a cell phone to scan the link. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. We have a chat, right? Yes.
If you put it in the Q&A box, I can
Okay.
forward it to whoever needs it. I'm sorry, I said that and I was muted.
Yes. All right. But it's not allowing me to type. I don't know if I need permission, but it's not allowing me to type in anything in the Q&A section. You're on mute?
Yeah, email me the link and then I'll cut and paste it from my email into the Q&A and I'll send it to everybody, or I'll forward it from my email.
Okay, I mean, if everyone got this thus far, I think we're good. The only other thing I will ask is that we take a moment to do a pre-workshop survey. This is just to test your own knowledge to see where you would be at or where you might be at with your basic understanding of hypertension. I will give that a minute or two, and then we will get right into our workshop. if we are ready to move on. All right, so welcome to today's Hypertension 101 workshop. My name is Nyasha Carmichael. I am the Hypertension Initiative Program Coordinator here at Take the Pressure Off NYC. In today's session, this is a basic overview of hypertension. We recommend that you speak with your healthcare provider if you have any specific questions that might come up about a diagnosis, medication, or treatment. And I want to thank you all for taking the time today to learn about this topic. Let's review our agenda for today's workshop. I will start by providing an overview of hypertension. Then we'll take a moment to discuss what hypertension looks like in New York City. The bulk of this presentation will focus on how to prevent and control hypertension, and we'll conclude by discussing how to accurately measure and self-monitor your blood pressure. After the presentation, I will share some handouts and resources that you can use to remember what we've talked about today. Before we dive into anything, let's define what hypertension is. Does anyone want to share what their definition or understanding of hypertension is?
Hi,
That's
high
okay.
blood. When the blood pressure is high, your heart is pumping too hard.
Okay, that's good. So, hypertension is also known as hyperpressure, as mentioned, and it occurs when the force of the blood pushing against the walls of your blood vessels is consistently too high. Over time, this can cause damage to your blood vessels and your organs. We'll take a look into this more shortly. Now, throughout the rest of the workshop, we will use high blood pressure when referencing hypertension. And some of the slides might have HBP or BP, just referencing the same high blood pressure or just blood pressure. Blood pressure is measured with two numbers written with one number over the other. Blood pressure, both numbers have to do with the pressure inside the blood vessels that carry blood from your heart to the rest of your body. These blood vessels are also called arteries. The top number is called the systolic blood pressure, and that represents the pressure in your arteries when your heart pumps blood. The bottom number is called diastolic blood pressure, and that represents the pressure of your arteries when your blood relaxes between heartbeats. Now, it's important to keep in mind that your blood pressure naturally goes up and down a little bit throughout the day. And for most people, it's lowest when you sleep and it's highest when you're awake. It can also temporarily change depending on what you're doing. And we'll discuss more about that in sections to come. Before we dive into what blood pressure number means in terms of your health, let's take a moment to look at your risk. As your blood pressure number goes up over time, your risk for complications like heart attack or stroke also goes up. For most people, normal blood pressure is below 120/80. Now, you need to know your blood pressure numbers. If your provider does not tell you, make sure to ask. If your blood pressure is 120/80 or higher, it is time to ask what to do about what these numbers mean and what you should do. If your blood pressure is close to 120/80, your provider might suggest looking at your blood pressure over time and watching what you eat, checking in on your physical activity. As your risk going up, it might be time to think about, medicine. Now, not all providers use the same cutoffs to decide when you officially have high blood pressure. But this is two examples provided on the screen. If your provider is using the American Heart Association guidelines on the top, they will call it hypertension. When your blood pressure reaches 130 over 80 or higher, the main thing that everyone needs to know is that if it's 120 over 80 or above, it's time to check in with your provider. Like, always ask what your personal blood pressure goal should be. Blood pressure can be overlooked because there are often no symptoms, which is why it's referred to as a silent killer. It's a leading cause of early death from heart disease and stroke. Uncontrolled blood pressure can lead to complications like kidney disease, vision loss, or even sexual dysfunction. Now let's talk about high blood pressure during pregnancy. High blood pressure can develop before, during, or even after pregnancy. If untreated or controlled, high blood pressure in pregnant person can affect not only the person but the baby. Complications for a pregnant person can include stroke, seizure, pulmonary edema, which is excess fluid in the lungs, or even kidney injuries. Complications for the baby can include low birth weight or preterm birth. You may also hear the term preeclampsia, which is associated with high blood pressure in pregnancy. This is a medical term that includes certain complications and risks related to high blood pressure in the second half of pregnancy. Some potential symptoms of high blood pressure in people who are pregnant include swelling in the face and hands, painful headache, blurred vision, or pain in the upper right area of the belly. Hypertension is just one part of preeclampsia. It can also cause damage and swelling in the liver, which is what causes that pain. Other complications might include too much protein in the urine. It might change the baby's growth and development. It is also common to experience no symptoms at all. Even if you experience no symptoms or have uncontrolled high blood pressure, it can lead to complications that we've discussed in previous slides. Next, I want to look at us to take a look at high blood pressure in New York City. This is a graph of New York City. Is there any recognized area here that anyone wants to point out? If you can, point out where Community District 14 is, or what shade.
207.
Okay, and 207 falls within which shade? We have 6, 5. Okay, prevalence is not that bad, I should say, compared to citywide. So high blood pressure is common and it affects all communities. More than 1 in 4 adults in New York have reported having high blood pressure. This amounts to about 1.8 million adults. On top of that, many New Yorkers with high blood pressure don't even know that they have it. Blood pressure doesn't affect every community equally. This map just shows the percentage of people diagnosed with high blood pressure by borough and neighborhoods. You can see that some of our neighborhoods have lower rates than others. These differences show up even when we account for people of different ages. This graph looks at early death rate from disease and stroke. These are death rates in people within the ages of 18 to 64. You can see again that there's a difference throughout neighborhoods. So we had a lower prevalence for hypertension, and looking at this one, we're more in the average for District 14, Brooklyn. We might see these differences. So our health is influenced by our personal choice and by our genetics, but also by the world that is around us. When people have access to affordable housing and good schools that can lead to stable jobs and comfortable income, good healthcare, safe neighborhoods, healthy foods, and respect from those around us, it's easier to be healthier. These influences may be part of the reason we see more high blood pressure in Black and Latino New Yorkers compared to other groups. Because of unjust historical policies that took resources from neighborhoods where a lot of Black and Latino New Yorkers lived. There's a growing prevalence, there's growing evidence that the stress caused by racism in all its forms has a direct impact on our health, including developing high blood pressure. In addition to teaching everyone what we can do to stay healthy, it's also important to address health equity if we want to tackle high blood pressure. That means providing and distributing resources as needed. There are programs at the New York City Health Department that aim to address this. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but there are ongoing efforts to make it easier to access good, affordable food, opportunities to exercise, and high quality healthcare. Meanwhile, there are plenty of things that you can do to prevent and control your any high blood pressure, I should say. We'll get into that next. Now, this slide shows some of the activities that we have here at the New York City Health Department. Just in keeping active or sharing information, having workshops and open discussions on different health topics or needs for the community addressing youth and adults. Many things, whether you can control or not, affect our health and risk for high blood pressure, including racism. There are large differences in high blood pressure and related health outcomes across neighborhoods, income, race, and ethnicity. High blood pressure is common in New York City, and many communities don't know that they have it and are dying too soon because of it. This doesn't mean that you will get high blood pressure. There are steps that you can take to reduce your risk. Now let's pause here. Are there any questions based on what we've discussed thus far? Okay. Yes, Steve, go right ahead. You're on mute, or your screen just froze. I am not getting a clear connection to Steve. I don't know if anyone else is hearing clearly. Yeah, I think there's something off with Steve's connection.
Steve, try again, maybe with your camera off, or just jump back in when you reconnected.
We will pause throughout to ask or discuss any questions or anything like that. Florencia, I believe you raised your hand. Go right ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks for
Good
the
afternoon.
presentation thus far. What programs are there available? I noticed the slide, but specifically what programs are being offered
Okay.
across, especially for
Yes.
the neighborhoods that are, that have the disparities or so. Great.
So New York City Health Department has various departments that address different aspects of health. So our department, we're with the Community for Health Equity and Wellness. We, particularly for the TPO, Take the Pressure Off New York City, we do hypertension 101 workshops like we're doing right now. And we also have a hypertension train the trainer workshop where we connect with community health workers and different community health providers, social care providers, and we give them information. We teach them how to conduct these workshops that they can then interact with community members themselves or participants or clients within their facilities. There is a healthy eating department, or I should say nutrition department. Here there are departments that look at blood pressure or monitoring diabetes, like the workshop that was done last week. There are various programs that also stem out of those workshops, those groups, such as food pantry, such as activities that address diet, the nutrition workshop, their the National Diabetes Prevention programs that come out of these departments. So it depends on the specific of what you're looking to get information on, but I will provide our email that you can reach out to directly asking for, hey, I need information on what you guys have going on in this area or that area, or I can direct you to whichever department head to get you more details on that. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Sean. Sean has her hand up.
Steve wants to jump
Oh,
in now that he's
Oh,
reconnected.
sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
Maybe I jinxed him. I'll go ahead and speak while we're waiting for him to pop back.
good.
I wanted to kind of go back to the relationship between housing and health outcomes, because Community Board 14 has one of the highest serious housing code violation percentages per 1,000 units of housing. It's something like 600 out of 1,000. Only
Wow.
40% of our housing in multifamily dwellings is adequate. We also have one of the higher percentages of people who are severely rent overburdened, and in our populations experiencing poverty, we're something like eighth in the city. And then we also have one of the higher percentages of overcrowded housing compared to borough-wide and citywide. And people don't think of this community in the through the prism of those numbers, because there's 5 historically landmarked single-family home communities within our 2.9 square miles. So when I think about our concern for health outcomes, I often, and we tie it in our district needs statement to housing. So my question, sorry for the long prelude, my question is, to what extent does DOH/MH work with, say, HPD in order to sort of make sure we're not siloing what HPD is measuring and what Department of Health concerns itself with in terms of healthy communities?
That is a very specific question that I am not sure I have the full extent to answer. But I think you brought up great points. Like, there is a lot of oversight. There's a lot of things that are not connecting amongst like all the city health department services. And I definitely would agree that more needs to be done so that we are not like bypassed nor being ignorant, I should say, to these other areas of concerns.
Well, cool. Then let's just consider this the beginning of a conversation that will carry on about linkages.
Perfect. Yes, I love that.
Thank you.
Florencia, I'm not sure if you wanted to say something else.
Yes, I did. Thanks, Sean, for bringing that up. And I also wanted to say, especially in the northern section of our community, where like overcrowding and all of that, all what that Sean said, and there are great health disparities in this, there's drugs and lack of green food, you know,
Yes.
having healthy foods and more of fast foods and you know
Yeah,
just the wrong, yeah, so
I agree. And
definitely need that to be included.
yeah,
Thank you.
I
Thanks,
lived
Sean.
in Community District 14 a couple of years ago, and I moved, but not that far. I'm now in 17 almost, so I partake in a lot of community events for my board. I even serve in one of my districts that I lived in, Community Board 9. So I am well aware of what we're facing as residents within these communities, and oftentimes it's hard to bring heads of places together to actually see where we're coming from and the issues there. So yes. Glenn?
Thank you. I just comment, I find it very interesting that with all the disparities that both Sean and Florencia pointed out, on your charts, we are one of the lowest areas in hypertension. So I find that really interesting. On the other hand, when it came to other types of deaths and strokes and so forth, we're fairly high, was
Yeah.
dark or blue. But the hypertension itself doesn't seem to be seriously affected by all of these other disparities. That's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. So hypertension, because it's often described as a silent killer, it might show up in other areas. Someone might have diabetes, or they might be obese. So it's like it might show up with other regards or other health stuff. But again, I see your comment, and it could also be that our data might be a little outdated and needs to be updated, so that could also be it. Joanne, go right ahead.
I think just that I wanted to chime in on that. I mean, I think part of the reason why we're having this discussion over the past few weeks and having this lunch and learn is to bring awareness to these items. And I think there are possibly a lot of residents that are undiagnosed with high blood pressure, but translates into untreated high blood pressure, which results in stroke and heart attack.
Yes, agree. Steve, I am so sorry that we're having a hard time connecting with you. If you can now, go right ahead.
I sent my question in the Q&A just because my internet's going in and out, so I don't know if you can see it there.
Okay. I cannot.
I can, but Steve, we can hear you if you want to go ahead. If it putters out, I'll read it, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so sorry about that. My question was if there's, it seems like for both dealing with prediabetes and high blood pressure, the focus is on diet and exercise. So I was just wondering if specifically it's basically the same diet and exercise recommendations for both, or if there are any differences. And also I was curious if there's like an observation of correlation between having high A1C and high blood pressure generally. Thanks.
Yes. So because our role as health educators is to share information, we cannot suggest in this instance something outside of things that we can control. You might not be able to control if you have, depending on the type of diabetes or something like that. But in terms of the built environment, there might not be much that we can personally do, but there might be personal individual things that one can do. And your second question pertaining to A1C and hypertension is a more clinical question that I am not sure I can answer for you, but I can definitely see to get you an answer to that question. Joanne, you wanted to jump in? I love that you guys are supporting me in sharing information. This is great.
So I think I can help with that question a little bit. I'm a registered dietitian. I'm a certified diabetes care and education specialist. The first thing we can say about the relationship between having a diagnosis of diabetes and hypertension is that they go hand in hand because it's an inflammatory process, right? So if you have uncontrolled blood glucose, you're going to have an inflammatory process in your network of veins and arteries, and so they might get smaller or inflamed, and so that's going to contribute, and they'll be less flexible, so that'll contribute to hypertension. And then what was the other part of your question before that, Steve? Anyway, if you remember, I don't remember the first part of your question, but with regards to correlation between A1C, if your A1C is high enough that you have a diagnosis of diabetes, then there is an inflammatory relationship between a person who has diabetes and the risk of hypertension.
Yeah.
And the first part was about whether or not there would be similar dietary guidelines for each experience, or if they would diverge.
Yeah.
So typically for hypertension, we recommend that patients follow what's called the DASH diet.
And we'll get into that. Yes.
Lower in sodium and actually higher in calcium and magnesium. There's a synergistic effect with calcium and magnesium and low sodium. So that's one way, you have to think of it. The more sodium you put in your body, the more water you are retaining, the larger the overall volume of blood that you have to pump around, right? So you don't want to have this large volume of blood that you're pumping around, and that will increase blood pressure. And so essentially the DASH diet can be brought across to healthy eating for someone who has diabetes, but there would be a little bit more change, a little bit more focus on high fiber carbohydrates.
Yes.
I won't bar us anymore because
Yes, we're going to talk about the DASH diet, or we're going to mention that. All right. So if there are no more questions on this section, we're going to move along. We're going to talk about what we as individuals can do to prevent and control high blood pressure. A risk factor is something that can increase the likelihood that you will develop a condition or a disease like high blood pressure. Some risk factors are things you cannot change, such as your age, while some are things you can change, like your diet. What may be easy for one person to change may not be easy for others. These risk factors also intersect with social factors like we discussed earlier. For example, like not having affordable healthy foods within our neighborhoods. Let's review some common risk factors for high blood pressure. We have age, family history. If your parents or close relatives have high blood pressure, there's an increased chance that you can get it too. And then there is toxic stress. Now, adverse childhood and adult experiences can lead to toxic stress, which is a form of chronic stress that can directly impact your health. Risk factors you can change also include your diet, unhealthy diet. Now, a diet high in sodium or saturated fats and added sugars increase the risk of developing high blood pressure. Physical inactivity, a sedentary lifestyle can increase your risk for developing high blood pressure. Excess alcohol and excess weight. Adults who are overweight or struggle with obesity may have a higher risk of developing high blood pressure. Now, let's discuss some of the recommendations for how to prevent and control high blood pressure. A dietary pattern focuses on the general way which you eat most of the time, and not individual foods that you eat from time to time. Like we just got into discussing, the DASH diet provides the most standard, it's a standard dietary idea for how to eat with hypertension. Now, this dietary pattern aligns with the dietary guidelines for Americans. Now, in general, DASH includes consuming foods that are such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, unsweetened, low fat, dairy, lean protein, nuts, beans, legumes, and fish. Eating a whole foods dietary pattern like this naturally limits saturated fats, sodium, and added sugar. While many of us already know what healthy is, it isn't easy to eat healthy all the time. Many things can get in the way, but small steps can make big differences. Someone who eats very few vegetables can start by adding one vegetable to their dinner about 3 times a week and then build from that. Lastly, eating a healthy diet does not have to be expensive. There are things that we can try to do to help simplify that and to save money, such as making a meal plan for yourself and your family, making a grocery list based on that plan before shopping for food, buying fruits and vegetables that are in season, buying frozen fruits and vegetables, and buying less expensive brands instead of name brands. Before we move on, let's briefly discuss the difference between sodium and salt. Sometimes the word sodium and salt are used interchangeably, but they do not mean the same thing. Sodium is a mineral that helps keep the balance of fluid in our bodies that can affect the blood pressure. Eating too much of sodium can raise your blood pressure. Salt is a source of sodium, and salt is often used to flavor or can be used as a preservative, meaning that it helps keep the food in good condition and for longer. When you include salt in your diet, you are giving your body sodium to help it work properly. However, our body only needs a very small amount of sodium. The recommended sodium intake for adults is less than 2,300 milligrams per day. That's about 1 teaspoon of table salt per day. While limiting the use of salt shakers is important, most of the sodium we eat comes from packaged, processed foods and restaurant foods. Now, let's play a little game about which of these foods have more sodium. I will go through a couple of these examples, and if we're short on time, I can jump ahead. But looking at this, which of these foods has more sodium? Anyone?
I'll guess the corn tortilla.
Okay, corn. Anyone believe that the flour tortilla has more? No. I mean, these are things we may or may not know. It depends. All right, let's see what we have. So, the flour tortillas. Relying on taste to detect salt can be misleading because foods can be high in salt even if they don't taste salty. Also, two similar items in the grocery store can have very different amounts of sodium. That's why it's important to check the nutritional facts label and try to choose options that with the least amount of sodium or limit how much of the item you eat. How about this one? Which of these has more sodium?
Seemed like the seasoned brown rice.
Okay,
Right? That's what I thought. That's
okay,
what I was
good,
thinking.
good. The seasoned brown rice has more sodium. The flavor packets that come with seasoned rice can be high in sodium. If you like seasoned brown rice, you can buy plain rice and season it to your taste. You can boost your flavor while using less salt by adding herbs and spices, or even just a splash of vinegar. I like a little bit of lemon in my rice, it brings out the taste. So you can do it yourself at home. Go buy what you have, get your herbs, your spices, and flavor your packets, make your own flavor packets. Okay, which of these have more sodium, canned or frozen vegetables?
Very interesting question.
Can.
Canned.
Okay.
It's frozen.
Frozen.
Okay, we have canned and we have frozen. So the canned vegetable has more sodium. There can be as much as 650 milligrams of sodium per serving. Now, remember when you can foods, oftentimes they use sodium to help preserve. So try draining and rinsing canned vegetables and beans with water to help reduce sodium. And look out for low salt or no salt options in the store. If you can't find those, consider choosing frozen vegetables or fresh vegetables or dried beans instead. And lastly, watch out for pre-made sauce that might come with frozen vegetables. Those often come with a lot of extra salt. Okay, one last one. Which of these items has more sodium? The lean deli turkey or the roasted turkey?
The
Deli turkey.
lean deli turkey. Although it can be
Deli.
tricky because now they're pumping the meats with salt. So
Ah,
Yeah, is this
Wow.
like a regular roasted turkey or is this like the prepackaged with it boosted?
Looks like a fresh roasted turkey to me.
I'm going with
Okay,
deli.
the
All right.
deli.
So it's the lean deli turkey. Processed meats can be very high in sodium, even if they're labeled as lean or healthy or natural. Try to use ingredients that are fresh when you're cooking at home, and less salt during the cooking process itself. And instead add salt to taste at the table. As we discussed, herbs and spices, as well as garlic and onion, can go a long way toward boosting your flavor. Sugar drinks, sugary drinks are the largest single contributor of added sugar in the American diet, more than sugars from desserts and candy combined. That's a lot of sugar. Sugary drinks include products like soda, sports drinks, energy drinks, sweetened tea products, and fruit drink. Just one 20-ounce bottle of soda has 250 calories and more than 16 teaspoons of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. We will recommend that you replace sugary drinks with water, seltzers, or even unsweetened coffees and tea. And eat whole fruits instead of having fruit juice. And watch out for sweetened coffee and drinks, which can have a lot of added sugar. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity a week and muscle strengthening activities at least 2 days a week. Moderate intensity aerobic activity is anything that gets your heart going faster. That can be brisk walk, biking, swimming, something like that, and aim for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day. Some examples of muscle strengthening activity can be weightlifting or using bands or even your body weight. Examples can be yoga, tai chi, stuff like that. These recommendations can be broken up into shorter bouts of physical activity and incorporated into everyday activities like taking the stairs, going for a bike ride. There's a lot of city bikes. I don't know. I actually there is a lot of city bikes in our district now. We're seeing a lot more of that, and using our local parks to move around, get about. Drinking more than a moderate amount of alcohol can raise your blood pressure. Moderate drinking is defined as one standard drink per day or less for women and up uh, two standards to drink per day or less for men. Let me picture that. So this slide looks at the amount. One standard drink contains roughly 14 grams of pure alcohol, which is typically found in a 12-ounce can of regular beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. So, women compared to men, different, but again, we have to be aware of this. For adults who are overweight or struggle with obesity, weight loss of 5% of the body weight or more has been consistently associated with lower blood pressure. Nicotine can temporarily increase your blood pressure after using tobacco products. If you smoke, quitting can help reduce your risk of heart disease, stroke, and many forms of cancer. If you or someone you know is having struggles with quitting, you can visit the New York City Gov/Health Department and search for NYC Quits for information on that. If you have been diagnosed with high blood pressure and prescribed medication, it's important to take your medicine as prescribed. Your medicine can help lower your blood pressure if it's too high, and that can reduce your risk of complications I talked about earlier. A lot of people struggle with this. Some people stop taking their meds because of this. Some don't experience any symptoms, or they're worried about medicine costs. They have side effects, or they see improvement and they decide to stop. It's important to not skip doses or stop taking your medication without talking to your doctor first. This helps you keep your blood pressure at the goal that your healthcare provider recommends. There are people who can help you address any concerns and adhere to your regimen. Your doctor and your local pharmacists are great resources for that. Based on what we already know, having high blood pressure might increase your risk for severe illness from COVID 19. So, if you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure and prescribed medicine, it's important to continue taking your medicine as it is prescribed. If you do have any concerns, please speak to your doctor or pharmacist, and do not rely or do not delay your chronic disease care visits or emergency care. I am going to pause here. Any questions, comments, concerns that we would like to share based on that section? Or I can dive into the next section if we're short on time. Oh, I see Glenn, Steve, go right ahead. I couldn't see you guys while presenting, so at any point in time, if there's anything that isn't clear, you can always jump in. Um, I will start with Glenn. Go right ahead.
Thank you. You talked about exercise and aerobic exercise and elevating your pulse, your heart rate. At what level does that become dangerous? Do you know?
What level does exercise become dangerous?
An elevated heart rate become dangerous.
Well, that is something you'll definitely have to check with your provider for. If you're a person who uh, does or practice some level of activity, you can read or you can, I guess, understand, connect with your body to see. You should never be working out and feeling dizzy or feeling uneasy or getting sick. So you also have to keep in mind how your physical body is responding to you while you're doing that. But I would suggest checking, monitoring your heart rate would also help.
Well, when I exercise, I swim for an hour and a quarter, and that's hard to regulate. But then I get on a stationary bicycle, and if you hold the handles, it reads your heart rate.
Yes.
And I'm doing some pretty rigorous numbers with the bike, and sometimes I get up to about 110,
Okay.
112 beats per minute. Now, I'm just wondering at
I
what
think that's
level.
that's that's high. But again, you do aerobic, you swim. So it depends on the activity because I'm in my 30s and I would be recommended to only go to 70, um, and then you have to 170 or 165, you have to tone down. So it depends on your personal goal or your personal feeling, but you should also definitely check with your doctor.
Thank
Steve,
you.
you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, I guess getting back to my earlier question about diet, I guess the what confused me a little bit was the slide on like sodas and sweetened drinks, because like I always think of that as like a sugar issue and like pre-diabetes. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I always think of like sweetened drinks as like a pre-diabetes issue, not a high blood pressure. Yeah, yeah. But so I'm just curious how, because a lot of the like sweetened iced teas, like I don't think they really have any sodium. So I just wanted to clarify what the risk is for high blood pressure with those.
Well, sugary drinks, they, and Joanne, as a nutritionist, please feel free to jump in with the medical terms for how it relates. But it is recommended that we do consume only moderate drinks. Sugary drinks have, what is that called? Um, the calories and the sugar also affects blood pressure flow. I cannot, for the love of me, remember the scientific term, but Joanne, please.
Um, I mean, they could be related in different ways. I think anytime that you mention, um, sugar sweetened beverages, it's always a good thing, even if it's outside the scope of like what we're talking about. But you would be surprised where sodium lives. So if you drink Gatorade, it's got sodium. I mean, there's tons of, there's a lot of, unless you're really looking at the labels, I would bet maybe 60% of sugar sweetened beverages have some sodium in them.
Does that help to? Okay.
Yeah. May I say something?
Yes, go right ahead.
And I also wanted to say that in eating desserts, one has to be careful because many times the sodium content is high and it doesn't taste salty because of the amount of sugar that's in it. So there are also some areas that one has to be careful in eating desserts, to find out what the sodium content is, because sometimes it's quite high, but you can't tell because of the sugar it takes, the sugars that's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. And I will definitely look into finding a more precise, direct connection. That way, anytime it comes up again, we can accurately get that. Um, uh, Now we're going to talk about how to accurately measure and self measure your blood pressure. First, let's talk about what to do before measuring your blood pressure. You should avoid smoking, alcohol, caffeine, and exercise at least 30 minutes prior to taking your blood pressure. You should also use the bathroom because a full bladder can increase your blood pressure. And you should rest quietly for at least 5 minutes and avoid any distractions. You should use an automated cuff that fits your upper arm. Avoid wrist cuffs unless they are recommended by your doctor. While measuring your blood pressure, these are some ABCs. You don't have a conversation either in person or on the phone. You sit in a chair that has your back supported. You put the cuff on your bare arm, you rest your arm at your heart level, and you keep your legs uncrossed, and you keep your feet flat on the ground. While measuring blood pressure, take at least two readings, about 1 minute apart. This is important because blood pressure can vary quite a bit between readings, so multiple readings can help improve accuracy. Some blood pressure monitors can be set up automatically to take your readings. Right quick, we'll do one example of this. This is a photo of an individual having their blood pressure checked by someone. Based on the steps we just discussed, do you see anything wrong with this?
Everything.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. So we have the person's back is unsupported, their shirt is rolled up tight. It looks like they're having a conversation, their arms are not at the heart level, and the arm is unsupported. All these reduce the accuracy of blood pressure. How about this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we see
Legs
some.
up
Yeah, okay. So, for
and bend it.
yeah, for this one, the person's legs cross, their arm is not at the heart level, and they're unsupported. Taken away from the fact that she's leaning across, what, if anything, in this photo do you think is wrong? Would this be a good example? Besides the fact that she's leaning over.
I think yes, because
Okay.
she's starting the machine, but when she starts it, she'll probably go
Yes.
back to the.
So this is an example of accurate blood pressure measurement at home. We're going to skip that one. Now, if you monitor your own blood pressure at home, it's important to use automated monitors with a cuff that fits your upper arm. As mentioned in the accurate measurement section, avoid using wrist cuffs unless they're recommended by your doctor. Now, this site, validatebp.org, you can go there and put in the type of monitor. It has examples of monitors that have been validated. This is a simple checklist for those who have high blood pressure and self-monitor their blood pressure. You should understand your condition, understand the steps for taking accurate blood pressure measurement, know your blood pressure goal, and know what to do if your blood pressure is too high. Any questions on take self blood pressure measurements? Oh, all right. For the sake of time, we'll jump ahead. I like to wrap up by sharing a couple of key takeaways, whether you have high blood pressure or not. And it's important to keep these things in mind. Know your blood pressure numbers. A healthy lifestyle can help prevent and control high blood pressure. It can be hard to make all these lifestyle changes we've recommended, so try starting with just one, like buying frozen fruits and vegetables instead of canned. If you have been prescribed medicine, it's important to take them as prescribed and discuss any barriers with your doctor or pharmacist. For adults who have high blood pressure, this is a list of questions to consider asking your healthcare provider, especially if you are unsure about any of these. Like, what is my blood pressure goal? Should I monitor my blood pressure at home? What are the common side effects of my medicine?
What happens? She's no longer there. Well,
Yeah, that was unexpected, but
Okay,
we
but
can,
me.
and look at
hello.
her coming, she's coming back.
Okay.
Before we end, this again is a post workshop survey. And we would much appreciate if you can complete this for us just to test where we're started or where we're at. Some of us are experts, some of us are learning a little new. Now, feel free to pop in with any question, comment, concerns. I do have a folder with some resources that I can share with the group. We have ways to track your blood pressure. We have a blood pressure tracking sheet. We have resources about high blood pressure, just information. So we have those in PDF form that I can share and you can hand out. We also have resources if you want to order physical materials. You can call 311 or you can reach out to us and we can order them for you.
That's great. Anything that you send to the Community Board 14 email address will be posted with this recording as additional resources.
Perfect. And I will definitely forward that.
So I want to thank you, Ms. Carmichael, for today's very informative presentation. I do hope that our board will share this as it is on our website, but still share it with friends and families and, acquaintances, because we do, as we've seen from the report, that there are folks in which they may not know that they have hypertension or high blood pressure, and until it's too late. So we want to get this out there to share with others. So thank everyone who showed up today. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Chairwoman Brown, and thank you, Ms. Carmichael, and
Thank you.
board members. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me me today. And I will be here next week and the week after because I
Thank
am
you.
loving this series and it's quite
Thank you.
Yes. All right then.
And you can invite others as well.
Perfect. I did
That's-
send it to my cousins that still live in the district, but I didn't see her on here. So, but I did forward that. Yes.
We're
yeah.
also live streaming, so we have an audience that's not visible, but it's
Yes.
live on the live stream.
Yeah.
So
But
Thank,
last week I did share it with someone and they could not see the live stream on YouTube. So I did forward this out, but the live stream for some reason on their end, from what I was told, it wasn't loading. So
oh,
I'm
okay,
not
wow.
sure if
it is up now.
okay.
Yeah,
All right,
Okay.
then
we
I
just
will
confirmed.
remind them. Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks very
Well,
much.
thank everyone for taking time out, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the 24th. All righty. Thanks again. Bye.
Have a good day, everyone.
You
You
too,
too.
Glenn. Okay, cover's on. All right, Steve.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye. See
bye-bye.
you all later. This was
Hi, young
fun.
Mr. Cohen.
Oh, my co-chair finally, hi, Yvette. She work.
All
Thanks
right.
for jumping in, Yvette.
But
There
thank you for
was a
jumping
lot
in.
going on today. We'll see you. Good to see you both.
All righty. Okay.
Okay. Take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.